Mike's on Mike, a conversation about politics, government, and Jacksonville, with 50-year opinion leaders Mike Hightower, Mike Tolbert, and award-winning broadcaster and longtime political observer, Mike Miller.
Welcome to another episode of Mike's on Mike. I'm Mike Miller, along with Mike Hightower and Mike Tolbert here in studio. This is a big day for us, and we'll tell you why in just a couple of moments. And of course, as always, the Jacksonville History Center is our sponsor, and our thanks to our friends Alan Bliss and the fine staff there, as well as our donors who keep the lights on and the cameras rolling. Those of us who pay attention to government, which is all of us, and politics, know that the tone and the tenor of elect public service has really changed dramatically in the past few years. Social media has weaponized political discourse, and today's hostile environment causes many people to second-guess offering themselves up for public service. And nobody knows that better than our guest today, Elaine Brown. Elaine, who has a long history of community service, was first elected at-large council member back in 1999, served 2 terms, as well as being president of City Council in 2004 when the Super Bowl was in town. I'm crediting her work for getting the Super Bowl to come to J. Duval. Anyhow, rather than step away from elected office when her second term was over, Elaine returned to her home in Neptune Beach and became mayor for 2 terms, 8 years. And then she was recently termed out. However, once again, not that she would want to stay at home for 5 minutes, and she didn't exit the public stage at all, and she accepted an appointment to my alma mater at the Jacksonville Transportation Authority by Mayor Deegan. And if she wasn't busy enough, Elaine recently became a principal at Avail Strategies, a government affairs and strategic consulting firm out of Tallahassee. With all of that, Elaine, welcome to Mike's on Mike. Great to have you with us.
Welcome. My pleasure. I'm honored to be here.
Well, thank you very much. And our mutual friend Mike Tolbert's going to kick it off.
Hi. You know, we got a whole hell of a lot to discuss, but I want to go back a little bit in history to when you were first elected to the council in 1999. The tone of politics back then was a lot different than it is in 2025. Help us understand what it was like then, and then talk to us a little bit about when it really started getting bad.
Oh, that's a great question, Mike, and thank you. And again, it's such an honor to be here with all of you. You're all special people to me. I think that when I was elected and going into 2000, we had email set up, we had our cell phones, and everything was congenial, even on the city council, I'll be honest with you. And as we got into social media and it became more and more prevalent for, everyone to use for sounding off or what have you, what I found out and what I think so many elected people found out was that the anger could be there without seeing that person, person to person. And so what you had was an awful lot of people that spew their anger at you and say really horrible things. And the fact that it isn't just stopping right there with you on social media, it goes out to hundreds, maybe thousands of people. And so whether it's true or not, it becomes a fact on social media.
How do you dodge that?
Well, it isn't a matter of dodging it, as a matter of fact of getting people to grow a thicker skin. When people call you names and accuse you of things, and then, just think it's nothing because they said it, so therefore, other people believe it. I think you have to be able to either let it go or you have to be able to, if you want to confront them, it usually adds to their being popular and saying, oh, she called me and I said, she said. So, ignoring them becomes really one of the things that kind of is self-preservation to some of it.
Picking up on, unfortunately, this hostile situation, Elaine, as the mayor of Neptune Beach, first, how many members of the town council?
5.
5, as opposed to 19 city council on the school.
Big difference.
Big difference. Okay, smaller room, but the emotion is no less. We'll start there. That meant that you had the gavel because you ran the meetings, whether it's the meeting or the public hearings, getting to public hearings. I've heard often that the same people who showed up for one came to the other, and They were very outspoken. I would use the word rude, not asking for names. What was that like when a community like Neptune is so small? I guess everybody knows everybody. When you're talking about that, how did you say you have to have thick skin, but in a community, for those of us who, like Tolbert and I have been here since statehood, when you have a small community like that and people are so hostile and they get personal, how did you deal with that?
Not well at first. I'm very sensitive. If you cry, I'll cry. If you throw up, I'll throw up. I mean, it's like I'm sensitive.
Please don't throw up.
So this sensitivity didn't help me at first, And thank goodness that I had some people to lean on, friends and family. And I have to say that our attorney for the city, Zach, was wonderful because I always thought there would be a way of stopping people that got up and lied to your face. But if you guys remember, when public comment is that portion of the city council meeting,
right,
you don't argue back. They have their say. They have their say. You don't counter what they said. You don't say, "Oh, I'm sorry, but you're wrong," and get into an argument with them. You let them say it. And then you go on to the rest of your meeting. And that's the hardest part because you're standing there, sitting there, fuming over what was said that was either untrue or mean-spirited, and you really can't say anything. Nothing.
No fact-checking.
Yeah. So I think that sensitivity that I had, I was always looking for maybe there was a legal way to, kind of stop people from saying things on social media or saying things that aren't true and, doing something that would, a letter from an attorney saying that's slander or something like that. But it was always the advice of the attorneys and just, let it ride, get over it. And you have to do that.
When you're on the city council of Jacksonville, 844 square miles, you're one of 19. That's different in a little small community of Beach, and you only have 3 or 4 good restaurants, and you're going to run into these people who are jerks. How was that?
First of all, there's more than 3 or 4 good restaurants.
Okay. It's been a while since
so
I've been
you
there.
can come on out and spend your money and have more fun over there. But secondly, I would say that I always remain professional. I don't care, except you're having fun with you guys. Always remain professional. I'm never going to go up to someone and start it. I'm not going to say, finger in their face or anything like that. So if I did see them in the grocery store or see them in a restaurant or whatever, I just avoid it, And I think most of the city council would do that too. It wasn't just me. It was the entire city council. It was staff. I mean, some of these people. Now, here's the good news that I want to share with you. 99% of the people in Neptune Beach, if the toilet's flush, then they're happy campers. You don't really have a lot of people complaining. Now, some flooding because of rain, they would understand because it would recede pretty quickly. But you would get some calls. But, most of the time, what we had was an abundance of a great community to live, work, and play.
We recently had dinner with the legendary Pam Pohl, and she talked about her long quest to get more women to run for public office. And I know you're part of one of those groups that she's put together. She says it isn't easy to convince women to step forward, in part because of that hostile environment, and that they're finding other ways to serve the community. Tell us about the folks and what you're doing to try to recruit women to run for office, and what kind of response are you getting from them?
Well, it's interesting, because this generation is growing up with social media and bullying, and they're getting it, in elementary school, for crying out loud. These kids have phones. This is something that may, I hope, be something they can really deal with, maybe better than we have in the past. I think that social media is a way of life with most people right now. And as you were in high school and college, and it was such a big part of your life, I think it can be a little easier. Now, does that mean that when you're attacked publicly that you can take it easier? I don't think so. So I think preparing people and letting them know how it's going to affect. It doesn't just affect you. your husband, your wife, your friends, your family. I mean, it causes a lot of concern, if you would, when a family hears something on social media and says, "Did you say so?" And you say, "No, I don't know what you're talking about." And so, it's hopefully that kind of upbringing in social media will be a little bit more of a better platform as they get into, public office and in the public eye.
When you were first elected 25 years ago, there were a few women. I know. And
She was 12. She was 12.
You were 45, weren't you, at the time, I think?
145.
Anyhow, there were very few women who were holding public office, but there were people like Tilly Fowler, Alberta Hips, Gwen Yates. Did you rely on them for advice and support and just say, how do you women do this?
If you don't mind me elaborating
Sure.
just a wee bit on this,
All right.
is that when I was elected, there were 11 women on the city council.
What?
11 women. There are 2 right now.
So
There were only 19.
Did you go to men for support then?
There are only
Actually, I
there are only
did.
19 members.
I know. And
Wow.
we were the majority, yeah. And Overton, Councilman Ben Overton, was a mentor of mine, with a lot. But, by the time, you kind of know your way around and find your way to the bathrooms and, deal with legislative staff and everything, it was very congenial because of the sunshine laws, remember. Yes. We couldn't go in and just say, "Hey, what do you think about this bill coming up?" Or did you vote that way on such and such? You really and truly had a group of people that were supportive of each other. Ginger Soud was the president the first year that I went in, and then Alberta Hits the second. I had 2 women,
In a row,
were there. And then, it was a different atmosphere because we really and truly could say, "Hey, how are the kids and how are you doing today?" And Lad Daniels, I know that everybody remembers Lad Daniels. Lad once a year would have the whole group over for a cookout in his backyard.
Huh.
I don't think anybody would do that right now with sunshine laws and people being so vicious,
It's just the
They
media,
would think
media
that
would
you're
be all over
yeah,
the
they would think that you're just starting,
Well, they're afraid nobody will show up.
Well, right. But on that point, I think that also speaks to back then, you knew what the rules were and you didn't talk about it, and people stayed in the lane and stayed by the rules.
Well, you had to.
Well, yeah, but I'm not, and probably the press would say we didn't, and they bought it. I'm not the cynicism then is with the press. As Mike said, I'm not sure they would do it, or they could get together, or would take the risk. Though I think some of them are already pushing the envelope, but that's a separate show.
I see no evil.
Yeah, I got it. I can say it, you can't.
No, I truly believe that a system works better if an atmosphere is good. So if you've got a system where the people feel comfortable and you're not wondering about everything, I mean, I knew my council members' families and children, and we went and sat in. We had a box at the stadium. I don't even think they have one. I don't even know right now, But it was, I met their kids. They met my kids. It was a different atmosphere. And certainly when you have, as you said right now, cameras everywhere and people looking for something to go, gotcha.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different.
Let's do as we like to say on this show, change lanes for a minute. There's a really good reasons why Mayor Deegan appointed you to the JTA. When Ed Austin was the mayor, you chaired the Downtown Master Plan Task Force and led the Multimodal Task Force, which studied creating a transportation center near the Prime Osborne Convention Center. You were also a leader in saving the Mayport Ferry and in making sure that A1A got designated a scenic Florida highway. You recently joined the JTA, and up until now, historically, the JTA has been made up of members from Duval County, some appointed by the governor, some appointed by the mayor. But that's changing, and the legislature just passed a law that's going to make 3 appointments to the JTA, one from Nassau, one from Clay, and one from where?
Nassau, Clay, and St. John's.
St. John's.
St. John's, I'm sorry. How's that going to change the JTA? And change your mission and change your focus?
I just have to say it's good coming in at the beginning of this. I've only had one meeting. And so it's really kind of cool coming in instead of being like old hat, been there, we've done it this way. I'm going to come in with a possibility of helping to create this regionalization.
Or the environment.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. But I think that is a plus the way that I think about it. I think that as we look into what's it going to look like, to be more regional, we already are regional as a JTA, but, now that it's going to be a little bit more of a microscope, if you would, on some of this and a lot of what's going on in Tallahassee and what this will look like with people who really aren't from Duval County. It's the Jacksonville Transportation Authority. And so broadening it is like a next and new adventure.
So what was the governor's motive for doing that and diluting the membership, the power, authority of Duval County residents, since it is the Jacksonville Transportation Authority? What do you think his motive was?
The governor is all powerful. The legislators are all powerful. This is what they've decided they're going to do, and this is the path we will take. I don't know what the motive was, but I don't know what the legislators do over there anyway. In some instances,
Neither do
some
they.
of the things that
right.
happens, and we have always been. I've always been with a body of people that thought we knew local government better than Tallahassee did. But, we're going to do whatever is needed to make the Jacksonville Transportation Authority the best regional authority in the state of Florida.
I just have to say, now we all understand why Elaine Brown has been so successful in the Jacksonville City Council, down in Neptune Beach, and all these other things. Masterfully said. Beautifully said.
But not necessarily true.
Doesn't matter.
I think she did a masterful job.
I think she
of
did a
doing it.
masterful
Thank
job
you.
as well.
Listen to Hightower.
And it has nothing to do. Has nothing
Did you hear
to
that?
do with,
Listen to Hightower.
has nothing to do with Tallahassee control of what's going on in Jacksonville.
Yeah. Well, as you, and just a slight rebuttal, but as you look at regionalization, most of the people from these other counties work in Jacksonville. Not most, but a lot of them do. And this is the hub for so much in the arts and culture and shopping, et cetera. So our bedroom communities have really become, bigger, more expanded, and certainly a large part of what's happening for North Florida.
I buy that.
Nat Ford, the CEO at JTA, has been on mics a number of times. In fact, that he comes back is wonderful, to discuss autonomous vehicles and the new Autonomous Innovative Center. Not everyone understands or appreciates autonomous vehicles. Can you remind us of what will they do and give us an update on their timing? Now, you've only been one meeting. We got that, so we can put you on the spot. When can we ride one of these things, and where are we going to go?
Well, I hope you'll be with me on June 30th, and we will all take a ride. I think that would be amazing. And we'll start on Bay Street.
Mike's on Mike on U2C.
Yeah, we're going to...
Really?
So, yeah, there's 14 vehicles, and, they carry, passengers up and down this corridor of Bay Street as a start, and then the expansions will come over the years. But I brought along with me this picture. I don't know if the camera will get it later or whatever, but it's not the sexiest looking thing, it's really van looking. But as we get into the vehicles that are coming, they're going to be, much, I think, more desirable to ride.
Sexy.
Everybody right now. I was going to say it again. I didn't say sexy. But much more desirable to ride because it's going to look, much more like an automated vehicle, and more high tech. People will, certainly. But right now, I think that as we look at these, it's kind of the start, and this is the very first as we go into the others.
I hear this all the time from people, smart people in town, and I'd like to ask the question. We've invested millions and millions of dollars in this equipment. Where's the demand for it?
right? And please don't take this the wrong way, but what if everything waited until the demand was there? Then you're behind the times. You're far behind it. So what we are saying and what we're looking at really is the future. And the future of Jacksonville right now, all of us have been a part of, we're on the cusp of being a vibrant downtown. I believe that right now. I believe that right now, when you look at what's happened in La Villa, what Shad Khan and the Jaguars, what is happening, certainly around the stadium, and then look as you start going back towards, all of downtown, you're going to see so much more. What if, the jail goes away, and what if more condos come there? What if we're looking at the landing, more residential and a lot more fun? Now you're seeing, so you're ahead of it, and I agree with you. It seems like we're ahead of it, but you can't wait until it's congested. People are trying to get around and people are complaining. So it's a little bit of futuristic thinking.
As Mike Tolbert indicated earlier, you were quite instrumental in saving the Mayport Ferry. Recently, the ferry had an unfortunate accident where it ran into the boarding pier. And JTA is now saying that it may be out of operation for up to 3 months. Is the authority or FDOT or any authority or any government agency doing anything to try to lessen the inconvenience from those thousands of people who use the Mayport Ferry to get across the St. Johns River?
No.
Okay. That was Elaine Brown.
First
There's
of all,
a real opportunity for people to do a charter service now.
There you go. Bring out your dinghy and we'll get you across.
First of all, let me just say that I've been president of the council member, president of the council, and a mayor, and these titles are wonderful. But being the fairy godmother is absolutely the finest title that I ever had. Saving the ferry was one of the best things that, I had a big part in, and I am so proud of that.
And you didn't even have to kiss a frog.
I know. It's going to be 4 to 6 weeks. And it sounds better that way, but 4 to 6 weeks. And what they're doing is actually in 2026, it has to come out for to be hauled out, and they look over the whole thing, make sure they're going to combine it while it's out right now.
Oh, okay.
So that it won't have to be pulled out next year.
Oh, that's good.
So
that's excellent.
what they're doing is they're making, lemonade out of lemons, if you would, in a nice way, because this happened, and by the way, it's still under investigation, but while it's being repaired, while we're looking at the repairs, why not take advantage of it being hauled and do the mandated haul out to look at the safety of the vessel.
Yeah.
How long did that take? What's the usual when they pull it out from maintenance?
About 6 weeks.
Hey, see, you're just there. You go. There's your spin.
Yeah. And I want to add that if you guys remember back in Jacksonville's history, we had 2 ferries. We had 2 ferries on weekends. They operated both of them, and so on the strategic plans for the ferry and the ferry operation is a second ferry. And I think that this is one of those cases where you say, if only we had a second ferry. So it'll certainly be welcomed, when they get one.
Elaine, before we wrap things up here, and we got a few minutes left, but you got to tell us about your new job. Tell us about Avail Strategies.
Yeah.
Avail Strategies kind of fell on my lap, which I'm just so excited about. And this is a very small firm that's they're housed in Tallahassee, been around a while, and actually Heath Beach worked for Peyton in his administration here. And he is the principal of this. And he is a lobbyist. He is not an attorney. And myself and my former council member, Lauren Key, have, we're going to be starting up this Jacksonville branch, if you would. And already some of the clients, which I really can't talk about right now, but it's exciting to me. It's got, stuff like, you're thinking about high tech and you're thinking about security and things that I think later on I'll come back on and talk about it. But it'll be really a challenge for me and a good one.
I know you can't talk about those that you're dealing with now, but can you give us an idea of what kind of customer you're going to be targeting? What kind of business are you looking for to bring into the film?
Yeah, well, actually, it will be a combination because there are clients like this one that I'm not talking about that is really looking at security with AI, that, you know, things that I never thought about, and that will revolutionize some of the things that have happened, you know, recently on college campuses and in businesses, et cetera. But also we're looking at small governments like Neptune Beach, you know, that we can do some local government lobbying for them, and combination of both Tallahassee and Jacksonville.
I have to ask
Go
this
ahead.
question. I got to ask this follow-up question. 8 years on the city council, 8 years
Mayor.
Neptune Beach, having lobbyists in front of you, and now you're going to be on the other side. There's a mindset. Easy to do? I mean, it's going to be intriguing. I was just wondering, I've seen it happen. Other people can't do it.
Right.
Or some people just can't wait to do it. How did I,
Yeah.
from spend a couple of years doing it, I'm just fascinated by it. Because some people can do it and can't.
Yeah. Well, you're a role model for this.
Oh.
You're who you are all the time. You're honest about it, and you create the best picture and the most honest picture. Yep. That's what lobbying should be. Lobbying is about being yourself and not something else that's, you know, because you're my client. This is about believing in your client and painting that picture for your client and representing them that way. And I have to say that I have friends that are lobbyists that are some of the best people, and they are like that all the time. You know, I don't know. Am I like,
No, because
crazy here? But
I think you're using a word that our senior curmudgeon uses a lot, is authentic. And I think,
Yes.
and people see that and they buy into that. And if
Yes.
it's not there, then they won't.
Yeah.
You got that. You got that in spades.
And not just that, but even as an elected official, you've already been doing lobbying.
Yeah.
You lobby
true.
your constituents
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time.
You've been an advocate.
and you're lobbying
And
your
you're
other
presenting
council
the-
members, really.
Yeah,
when you're,
And you're
It's-
presenting the
it's-
best way that the city looks or Neptune Beach looks.
That's why I'm saying either you can do it or you can't.
Yeah.
You can't grow it. It's there or it's not.
and
But
who
I'm
you,
excited for
who
you.
you represent is a big deal.
Absolutely.
You know, and
And
I don't think that, you know, I could represent someone or some entity that I didn't believe in. It'd be like, nah, I can't do that.
When she said you lobby other city council members, she meant in noticed meetings.
Of course.
Of course.
Well, we'd already established that.
I just want to make sure of that.
Of course. Yeah, you better believe it, by the way.
Elaine, thank you so much.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank
I've
you.
had so much fun. Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank
your
you.
many years of public service and
thank you.
hopefully many more years of influential politics.
With a little fun thrown in there, too.
Thank you guys very much. It's good to see you, Mr. Tolbert.
Yes,
Thank
Mr.
you for
Tolbert.
joining me
Good
in
to have you in
studio.
town.
Always good to have you here. And that's going to do it for this week's Mike's on Mike. Thank you all for joining us. Once again, our thanks to the Jacksonville History Center for sponsoring us, and catch us on your favorite platform every week. And we'll see you here again next week.
Mike's on Mike with Mike Tolbert, Mike Hightower, and Mike Miller can be found on your favorite podcasting platform, Facebook, and YouTube. Visit the website at mikesonmike.com. Join us next time for more conversation with Mike's on Mike.